my name is Beatriz and I am from Rosenberg, Texas. I went to school here at Lamar Consolidated High School. My life here at Lamar was very bizarre. You know, I was that one student who always talked back to the teacher, you know, was always cussing and, you know, just used really foul language. I had a certain group of friends when I first started high school. They had a huge influence on my life just because I was younger than them. I was like 14 and they were like 16, 17. And, you know, they popped Xanax here at school. It was a really hard drug because like I've never done that stuff before, and it was just the way my body reacted to it was really bad. It made me really drowsy during class, really tired. So I would always try to get an excuse to go to the nurse's office. I mean, at the same time I was skipping because I wasn't doing anything, failing all my classes. My problem was that I always wanted to fit in with the wrong people. Dating somebody who is on the football team, on the varsity football team, that just brings a lot more pressure just because, you know, he's friends with the cool kids, so it's like, you know, you have to be like that too. I actually encouraged a bunch of my friends, you know, to do certain drugs, and whenever I turned 18, I had a group of friends who were much older, and, you know, I was working with these people. You know, they always had these parties, you know, with really hardcore liquor. And that's when my drinking kind of started. And it was just something that, it was like a quick addiction, because it's like, you love how you're feeling at the moment, but then like, obviously the next day is like terrible, right? So one day, this was my junior year, I was sitting out there, right in the front, waiting for my ride to pick me up. I noticed there was this man on the corner of the street over there, and you know, he was talking about God, right? And he was talking about how, like, you know, we shouldn't do drugs, shouldn't have sex before marriage, and like we shouldn't drink alcohol, and like, you know, all this stuff like usually that people around my age do, right? You know, I was very like offended by what he was saying, very like, you know, like, okay, like who does this man think he is to come and tell me not to do, you know, these things, right? Because it's my life. But it was burning in me, like what he was saying was really, really irritating me. A couple weeks later, I bring it up to my pastor at the time, and I tell him how there was this man out at my school, you know, preaching. You know, he was out there telling us all these things, you know, and I didn't feel like that was right for him to do that. And, you know, my pastor tells me what a typical person would say now, you know, oh, you know, yeah, he probably shouldn't have done it that way, you know, it's gonna scare people off. A couple years later had passed by, like 2-3 years later had passed by, and I got invited to a Bible study. And, you know, I was already going to church, but I didn't really care for it. I was just going because I thought, like, if I win, I'm good. Went to a Bible study. I really loved it. And I saw the man, like I recognized him. I wasn't sure that was him or not, but I was like, I think this is him. And then he, like a couple weeks later, had brought it up that he would go out to the schools and preach. And that's when it clicked that, yeah, that was the man who was out in my school. And you know, I tell him on a Thursday night when we have Bible study at his house, I tell him that, you know, that he was out there and I was listening to him. You know, I'm not sure if the other students were listening, but I was, you know, and it did bother me. But it bothered me because I was living that way. And he was bringing light to my sin, to how I was living, which is what the gospel is. It's what it does. It's amazing how my life really did a whole 180. You know, from the girl I was then to, you know, the woman I am now. It really, really changed me. And now I finally get to, you know, go out and share this with people. You know, my pastor now, he goes out to Houston, to Washington Avenue. He goes out to, you know, preach the gospel. And, you know, it's sad seeing all these people who are so ignorant, and a lot of them remind me of me, you know, who are just like, they want to be right, you know, they want to have this false image of God, you know, how God's all loving, but, you know, they forget that God's also, you know, a consuming fire God. He gets angry, you know, he's a jealous God. And, you know, you're filled with so much compassion for these people who, you know, are intoxicated or, you know, have drugs in their system. And it just, the way they're living, you know, and it just fills you with so much compassion to just go and really reach these people. You know, what matters is that you put the gospel there and, you know, you spread the seed and, you know, just see the results later on. You know, you just have faith that there will be results. I got to share the gospel with this young lady who, you know, she was going out to the streets all the time, and she would listen to the other people, you know, preach and stuff. And she was scared for her life that, you know, she knew Jesus was coming one day, but she was just scared she wasn't really ready to let all these things go, you know, like the drugs, the alcohol, the sex. She wasn't ready to let that go. And so, you know, me and two other young ladies, we got to talk to her, and we told her, you know, if you're so scared of his return, you know, you need to let that stuff go. Like, you need to put your faith in him. And, you know, we got to pray with her and everything. And as she was leaving, she had a drink in her hand still. And I told her, you know, like, hey, like, if you really want to follow Jesus, like, you need to let that go, you know. And she responded saying, you know, yeah, but like, what if this is my last drink? And I told her, like, yeah, but like, what if this is your last day? And like, what if Jesus does come right now? She grabbed her drink and she poured it out on the street, which was very, like, it just really hit home for me, because I saw this girl, the conviction in her. Like, I saw that she really genuinely wanted this. She just needed that push. And that's why it's so important to surround yourself with God-loving people, you know, people who walk like Christ, because if you ever backslide, you know, they're gonna hold you accountable and they're gonna push you back in place. And so